Good morning, Year 6. I think we're recording, yeah, we should be. Geography Week 5, Lessons 1 to 4. This video run through is going to be from all the lessons for the week for Week 5, and it's our last week before we're back ahead next week in Week 6. Straight back into it, and we'll have a little bit of assessment to get into, and then, we'll be right up and running. So make sure that we're paying really close attention as we work our way through these lessons. So we've got a couple of slideshows to go through first, and then we're going to have a bit of a discussion about, the worksheets that we're actually working through. And we're looking at a couple of different regions. We're going to be doing a little bit of map work in the lessons this week. So let's have a look here. Let's open up the slideshow. This one's called Area Reference. It says geographers can use grid systems to assist them in locating and representing features on a map. Area referencing is one system that geographers can use. How to locate features on a map using area references. On some maps, we use grid lines to help us to determine the location of places and features, and we looked at those with latitude and longitude. So having a grid going horizontal and vertical can allow us to pinpoint a certain spot by talking about the direction on the vertical and the direction on the horizontal, and they're going to meet at a point. Area references are used to find a general area on the map as well. So, excuse me, other than specific areas, you can use that to find general areas as well. And area referencing uses a combination of unique numbers on a map to indicate that area. So often they'll use numbers one side and letters the other, and that might be familiar with other different types of grids that you might have seen as well. The vertical grid lines are called eastings because they increase the value you travel east. They're also called lines of longitude. Good work. The horizontal lines are called northings, and these are other names. They are also called, if the vertical lines are longitude, the horizontal lines would be latitude. They increase the value as you travel north. Read the easting first and the northings second. Hint to remember this. Think of an aeroplane as the aeroplane journey begins. Excuse me. Eastings across the bottom of the grid, and then it takes off and goes upwards. Northings up the side of the grid. Just a little trick. So they're talking here about northings and eastings. So it's determining how you actually read that coordinate so you don't get too confused. That's why letters and numbers are really easy often. They may say A12 or B4 or something like that, because then there's no confusion. When we have numbers on both the vertical and the horizontal, it can get a little bit confusing, but we are talking about doing the eastings first and the northings second. So we go longitude first, latitude second in this situation anyway. Okay, so we can see here that we have 17, 18, 19 and 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. They're the different lines for each. So what we would do likely here, you can have your numbers that are in excuse me. Sorry, a little bit of a clearing in my throat this morning. I need to have a drink. That's what I need to do. So you can have your numbers that are on the lines, and that will give you a very specific point, and it will be exactly this point. The other alternative is to have the numbers between the lines, and so you might have 32 here, and then that means that any box could be a location for a larger area as well. Now have a look at this map. That's a bit better. Can you highlight, or could you find the coordinates of a particular object? Let's say the plane, or the house, or the jetty, or this palm tree. What would be the coordinates of those? Usually in this situation, I prefer to put the numbers in between the lines, because that way we can use a large area. Very rarely will something fall right on that dot. So that can be something that, if you're making grid lines, can be a bit tricky. To find the area reference of a feature, we use the coordinates of the bottom left-hand corner of the grid square in which the feature is located. So the coordinates will have four numbers, the easting and the northing. So this is to tackle that problem we were talking about before. So if they're talking about this whole square, they'll use this corner to represent that square. This corner then would represent that square. This corner would represent that square. So whatever the coordinates are for this corner here, it would be this line and this line that would represent that whole square. Again, I think it's better to actually put your numbers and your coordinates in between the lines. I think it gives you a better indication, but this can be one way you do it as well. Okay. Sorry, I can't stop yawning today, but it doesn't matter if I record it again, it's going to keep happening, so we'll just bear through it. Hopefully I'm not making you guys yawn yourselves. How to use area references. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they give us a bit of a guide here. Here is an example of our grid. Now, we look at the bottom left-hand corner, and again, this is using their strategy. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest, but this is using their strategy. So the bottom left-hand corner would be here. We read the eastings first, which is the ones going across. So that would be 32 east and 12 north. So the area would be area reference for AR 3212, which would represent everything in that box. On the grid below, can you find the area reference for the 4 coloured squares? So I'll do A for you, and I want you to write down for me, please, B, C, and D. So A is this square. Now we're looking for bottom left-hand side, which would be this corner. We want to see our eastings first. So what's our cross number? It's going to be 41, 42, it's going to be 43. So it'll be AR, area reference 43 and 25. So it would be AR 43, 25 for A, representing that square. Can you do the same for B, C, and D for me, please? There's your answers. Okay. So that's how we use area reference, and that is a little bit of revision because we have done our work on latitude and longitude and how we actually do that on a map. But quite a handy thing, and then we have an activity that's going to match with that today as well, or over the course of the week at least. Excuse me. So we're going to move into talking about our diversity of environmental characteristics in Asia, and what that means is what is the differences between the environment in Asia. And we make some comparisons between different countries as well. So the largest continent, the continent of Asia as a whole, is vast because it covers a really wide stretch of land. Its land size is approximately 44,579,000 square kilometres, and it covers 8.7% of the Earth's total surface area and 25.5, nearly 30% of all the Earth's land is contained within the continent of Asia. Climate zones across Asia. So Asia has a diverse climate. Remember that word diverse, we've used that a lot. It means different. Major factors influencing climate in Asia is a huge land area extending from the tropics to the Arctic. Tropics would be down here around the equator and then up towards the Arctic. What would the temperature be doing, do you think? Great range in elevation from sea level to high plateaus and mountains. So you have areas in Asia that are right down on sea level and then up, particularly in the mountains here in the Himalayas, and also mountains in Japan as well, to have some really high altitude spaces and places as well. Asia has some of the coldest, some of the hottest, some of the wettest, and some of the driest places on Earth. And that's what happens when you have a big spread of land. You're going to have lots of different variety in the environment. And we can see some examples of that now. Some low plains and swamplands here, what looks like rice farming. We have a big delta here where we can see that there are lots of different areas of water penetrating into the earth. We have a few dry patches, and this looks like it's really high and elevated. We can see snow-capped mountains. Desert here, obviously, we have rainforest and orangutan in there as well. And then we also have some really high alpine areas, likely in the Himalaya mountains, really cold regions. So there's some key or important geographical features. One of them is the Gobi Desert. It's the largest desert region in Asia. It spans the north to northwestern part of China and the south of Mongolia. It's the 5th largest desert in the world. It covers 1.3 million square kilometres and is located on a plateau 900 to 1,500 metres above sea level, which means it's a very cold desert in winter, down to -40. We would not have ever experienced anything like that unless you went to another country, but probably not even really, to be honest. Maybe the coldest of the cold in the Arctic and the Antarctic get down to that sort of temperature. That's really, really cold. And it likely gets, or Conversely, gets very hot in summer, up to 50 degrees Celsius. And similarly, we probably wouldn't have experienced that. Maybe a couple of 40-degree days, but not a lot of 50s, I think. Another important feature is the Mekong River. The Mekong is the world's 12th longest river and the 7th longest in Asia. It's about 4,350 kilometers long, and it goes from the Tibetan Plateau. It flows through China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and its mouth is the Mekong Delta, the South China Sea. The Mekong River Basin contains a wealth of natural resources, including one of the world's largest inland fisheries. The water irrigates large tracts of forest and wetlands that produce building materials, medicines, and food, and serve as habitats for thousands of species. So it's a big water system through there. Mount Fuji, which is a really spectacular mountain, you can see in the image there. It's amazing. Is located on Honshu Island, and it's the highest mountain in Japan. It's 3,776 meters high, which is enormous. It's an active volcano, and it last erupted in 1707. So active means it still has active processes happening within the volcano, but it doesn't mean that it erupts regularly. And you can see by that it last erupted over 300 years ago. So it doesn't happen all that often. This volcanic mountain is actually 3 separate volcanoes, one on top of the other, which is an interesting setup as well. The Ganges River. The Ganges River flows through India and Bangladesh. The 2,525-kilometre long river rises in the western Himalayas and flows south and east through the plains of northern India into Bangladesh, where it forms a delta before emptying into the Bay of Bengal. The Ganges is sacred to the Hindus, and millions of Indians who live along its course depend on it for their daily needs. Water, washing, all that sort of stuff. Food as well. Another important one is the coral reefs of the Maldives. The Republic of Maldives is a small island nation southwest of India and Sri Lanka. I know the Maldives well because it's got fantastic surf. I haven't been there, but I really want to. The coral atolls, which make up 80% of the country's land, spread over an area of about 90,000 square kilometres, which is enormous. Live coral reefs and sandbars sit on top of a submerged ridge that rises out of the Indian Ocean. The average height of the land is only 2.4 metres above sea level on the whole Maldives. The variety of the colourful corals in the reefs are home to thousands of marine species such as dolphins, fish, whales and turtles. Krakatau, otherwise known as Krakatoa, is a volcanic island found in the Sunda Strait between the Indonesian islands of Java and Sumatra. The surrounding island group comprises of what remains of a much larger island of 3 volcanic peaks, which was destroyed in a massive eruption in 1883. You might have heard of Krakatoa before. The eruption was one of the most violent in history and destroyed over 2/3 of the island. It caused huge tsunamis that killed thousands of people. The explosion is considered to be the loudest sound ever heard in modern history, with reports of it being heard up to 4,800 kilometres from its point of origin. So I'm pretty certain that would mean it could almost have been heard in Australia. I'm not sure of the exact distance that is, but maybe you could Google distance from Krakatoa to Australia, which would be spectacular if you could hear that sound. The Yangtze River. The Yangtze River is the longest river in Asia and the 3rd longest in the world. It flows for 6,300 kilometres from the Tibetan Plateau eastward across the southwest, central and eastern parts of China before emptying into the East China Sea on China's east coast at Shanghai. The Yangtze River Basin is environmentally diverse, ranging from high mountains and dense forests to fertile wetlands and busy waterways and floodplains affected by seasonal flooding. It's faced with enormous environmental challenges arising from population pressure and rapid economic development. So lots of awesome different types of geographical features in there. And we can see that not only do we have different uses for those sorts of things, but humans are engaged and involved in those things in different ways as well. So what we're doing on our first worksheet for this week is we're looking at our Asian neighbours, is the title of the sheet, and it is a map, and we're going to be looking at locating and doing some locating activities. So we can see here there is a map of the Asia region, or at least a significant part of the Asia region. It's tricky to say. Now, we can see that many of these are labelled, and this looks really similar to a map we did a little bit earlier, and that's why it's going to work really well for revision. So it says, refer to Map 1 Asia region. Complete the following tasks. You'll need to refer to an atlas or digital map to assist you in completing some of the activities. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Google. We're going to type in Map of Asia region. And we're going to search for one that works well for us. Alternatively, what we can do is we can click on this Google map and we can zoom our way in if we double click. And we can choose how big or small we would like it, clicking on our zoom buttons. And all I've typed in is Map of Asia, or I've gone to the Maps section of Google and typed in Asia. And then I can zoom right in and I can see what countries are where, and I might be able to even start to locate some of the rivers that we spoke about before. And we can see one here. What would that river be, I wonder? Zoomed in a bit too far. Okay. So let's zoom back out again. And there is our rough area of Asia, but obviously it takes up a greater deal. It's more like this sort of space. And technically Australia is just outside the realms of Asia because Australia is a continent itself. So let's go back to here. Allocate a colour for each of the regions of Asia listed below. Add the allocated colours for each region to the legend. So if we look at this map, here it's looking or asking us to allocate a colour to each section. So we can see here that we have Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia and South Asia. Okay, so I would like you to choose a colour for each of those, and you're going to then colour in these countries. And you're going to colour in those countries, and you're going to select those ones that are here on the list. So you can see China, Mongolia, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, Taiwan. They all fall into Northeast Asia. So as best you can, try to colour that. If you're doing the electronic version, there is a few different ways you can do it. But one that I would presume is if I'm looking to go in and through. Where are we? It may be a little bit tricky to do it, but sometimes we may be able to. No, it's not going to like that, is it? Okay. If you're doing it and you are just on the computer, what I would recommend is that you just write your colour in here that you choose, and you make sure that you locate them in your mind. If you can print it out, that is always going to work much, much better for us. But here are our regions, Southeast Asia and South Asia, and the countries that match those regions of Asia, those areas within Asia, they are listed there for you, for your help as well. Represent the location of each region of Asia by shading it on a map. Again, if you can print it off, it's going to work much, much better. If you can't, try and get creative, see if you can colour it in. I know there are some options in Word, but I'm not going to go through those at the moment because I'll be here for a few minutes trying to remember how to do that, but you're welcome to play around and see if you can work out a solution yourself. Represent the location of the following countries by labelling them on the map. Remember to use capital letters when labelling countries, for example, Australia, Japan, China, India, Indonesia, Vietnam and Thailand. So these are certain areas here that have been left out that you need to fill in. You can use our Google map as a guide if you would like, and that can be something you can use to help show you what the names of those countries may be. Question 2 says, refer to the map. So we're going back up there. Place a north point on map 1. So here we have our map, okay? You need to create a compass that you're going to put, and here would be a good spot, or perhaps down here, and you are actually going to write north and indicate the direction of north. Then it says, describe the relative location of places in Asia by using the 8-point compass. That means north, south, east and west, and then that would be our 4-point. Our 8-point would be our northeast, southeast, southwest and northwest. Okay, so you need to locate one country from another. So it says Malaysia is northwest of Australia. So let's have a look at the example they gave us. Here is Australia. Here is Malaysia. Okay, so it says Malaysia is what from Australia? So if we were to start in Australia, we would be going north and west. So northwest will get us to Malaysia. You need to try to do the same as well. Remember, you're talking about where this one is from this one. So you start with this country and you tell me what direction do you have to go to get to the first country. So Sri Lanka is something of Pakistan. So if I start in Pakistan, what direction do I have to travel to get to Sri Lanka? So let's do that as a guide. I'm not going to tell you, but if we start in Pakistan and then we need to get to Sri Lanka, is that going to be east? Is it going to be south, or is it going to be southeast? You tell me, and you pop that in the section, and we do the same for the rest of those questions as well. C says, within the Asia region, the relative location of Australia is. So within this whole region, where would you say Australia is located? Would you say it is located in North Asia, East Asia, South Asia, West Asia, Northwest, Southwest? Okay, where would you say Australia is located within Asia itself? Okay. D says, tick true or false beside each description of the relative location below. Australia is below the equator, true or false. India shares its northwestern border with Pakistan. Australia is beside Mongolia. Indonesia is near Australia. Taiwan is west of Thailand. And Nepal is between India and China. They're just a look at the map and it's a true or false answer. Okay. So we've got a couple more questions here. I'm going to read them out. I know there's a lot to this activity sheet, but you're working through it over the course of 3 or 4 days, so you don't have to do it all at once. It says, match the cities labelled on the map with the latitude and longitude closest to their position. So capital and country. Manila in the Philippines, latitude and longitude. So these need to be matched to the city that they match. Okay, remember, our latitude is our numbers that go up here, like a ladder, like rungs on the ladder, and our longitude are our numbers that go across. Okay, so if we have a look at the first one, Manila in the Philippines. Where's our Philippines and Manila? Here it is here. So we know that that one is really close to 120 degrees east. So it's going to be really close to 120 degrees east. And if we look across on our latitude, it is halfway between 0 degrees north and 30 degrees north. So what's halfway between 0 and 30? It's going to be about 15 degrees north, isn't it? So do we have an option down here that says 15 degrees north and 120 degrees east or close? This one, 3, 37, 4, 14. So 14 is pretty close to 15. And we wanted something close to 120. So that's pretty close. So that's likely going to match with Manila. Okay, now you need to do the same for the others as well. Start by locating the city and then you can match the closest coordinates that go with that one. B says, find the following cities on the map and record their location, estimating the closest latitude and longitude to their position. So same activity, except you're not given the latitude and longitude this time. Find the city first and then put an estimate of their latitude and an estimate of their longitude. Remember, latitude, like a ladder, is like rungs on the ladder, so that goes up this way for latitude, and our longitude are long, tall lines going this way. And last one says, determine the location of the following places on the map using the coordinates given. Represent the location of the places using a suitable symbol. Label the name of the place clearly on the map at the intersection point of the coordinates. So here, these aren't on the map as far as I know. No, they're not. So what you need to do here is you need to find this coordinate of 8 degrees south and 125 degrees east. Put a little marker where you think it might be and label it Dili in East Timor. And then you need to do the same with this city, New Delhi in India, and then Hong Kong in China. So with this last question, you find the coordinate point first, Put a little symbol, maybe a star, and then you need to label. Again, guys, this sheet is going to work best with a printed out copy. So some people have hard copies, some people don't, but hopefully you've got a printer in some way. If you don't, do your best to try to do your work on your sheet, whether it means tracing out the map or getting a copy of the map from somewhere or an atlas or something, and you can copy that. You might have to problem solve a little bit. That's the case of what we're doing at the moment with online learning, but that's okay. I'm sure you guys can handle it. That's our first sheet. Now let's have a quick look at our second sheet. Our second sheet has a series of questions based around it as well, but this sheet is going to be more in regards to the difference in environmental factors. This one is going to be an extension sheet. Okay, so you can work through this one if you finish the first sheet over the course of the week, but the first sheet does have a fair bit to it, so I'm going to go through this one reasonably quickly. The first one says, describe the spatial distribution of climate zones across Asia. And all that means is, describe the different climates in what space of Asia they might be in. So what do we find in the south? What do we find in the centre? What do we find in the north? What sort of climates do we see in each of those? And is there a pattern we can see there? B says, suggest a reason for the diversity of climate zones. So what reason do you think they have different climates in and throughout Asia? What would be the reason that temperature would be different, do you think? Write a solution in there for me. Question 2, referring to map 2 and table 1 and 2. And it says also an atlas possibly, so you might need to hop back in and have a look at our map of Asia in Google again. Similar maps as what we've had before. Table 1. Selected environmental features, the Yangtze River, the Gobi Desert and Mount Fuji. Mekong River, Krakatoa, and the Ganges River, coral reefs of the Maldives. Oh, excuse me. So in this one you need to categorise whether each of these environmental features that we saw in our earlier PowerPoint, and remember you can rewind to that, is it a river, is it a desert, is it a volcano, and is it a coral reef? You need to put the appropriate one in each of those. And there's going to be a symbol, so you need a symbol that you need to make up for a river, a desert, a volcano, and a coral reef. A says, examine the types of environmental features given in Table 1 and categorise them. So we're putting these ones into the right category of what they are. Use an atlas to find the location. So that's where our Google map will help out. The location is not on this map. You're going to add that in a second. Create a symbol to represent each of the features. A river might be a wavy line. For a desert, I don't know, you might have a sun. Volcano, you could have a little point or a triangle, maybe a coral reef, could be a fish or something, I'm not sure, but you can choose some symbols for that. Again, printing these out will be much easier for you, but use the atlas or use the Google Maps online to help you locate them. Represent the location of the features on the map using symbols. So on your map in map 2 here, you need to actually put them on your map using the symbol, and then you'll put a label as well. And add the symbols to the legend. So here it has desert, coral, volcano, and river. This is where you'll put your symbols, and then those important ones that we listed, the Ganges, the Yangtze River, the Gobi Desert, all those ones, you will locate them on this map using the symbols that you chose. Okay, last question. Question 3, locate the following places and features in South Asia using area references. Record the area reference and the feature in the space provided. Okay, so we have here, there's an example, so 08, 02, now remember we spoke about the bottom corner, so we have across the bottom here, because we have our eastings first, 08 and 02, which is going to be here. This will represent this one, and that is the Andaman Islands. So you need to find what is in 05, 06, remember we do this one first and this one second, and then you need to locate these and put the appropriate coordinates in for each of those. Last one, label and represent the following environmental features on the map. Use the area reference and give legend symbols. So here's the area reference. There's a feature here, and we have symbols that are included here as well. You need to find these and then add the symbol in there as well. If the symbol is not already on the map, you can add that yourself too. Again, having these printed off will make life much easier for you. Ladies and gents, that is geography for week 5. Quite a bit to it this week, but work through it. break it up into a few lessons each day, and you will be fine. This will put us in really good stead for coming back hopefully next week, and then we can get into some assessment to move through and finish off our unit for the term. Good job. Thanks for sticking it through. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.